About two-thirds of all Americans 60 or older own their own home. So, as we get closer to retirement, one of the important questions we have to ask ourselves is, should I continue to own my home in retirement, or should I sell it and invest the proceeds and then just rent? So, in today's video, I want to talk about some of the trade offs in this decision that you might want to have on your radar screen as you're thinking about this decision for yourself. And the first one is really thinking about, what does life in retirement look like for you? If if you're likely going to stay in the same town, if you're likely going to stay in the same county and state, I think the decision is quite a bit different, right? If you're thinking about relocating, I think it makes a lot of sense before you buy in the new neighborhood just to rent and to see if it makes sense for you. Is this going to be your new home? You don't want to be locked in and have all of the expenses and the headaches associated with selling a house. If you decide your dream home, your new location, is not as perfect as what you had hoped. So in my opinion, that's super easy. That decision is super easy, at least for a period of time, is to rent to make sure that you've made the right choice, particularly if you're going to leave the United States. Very few people do. But if you think, hey, I'm going to go to Vietnam, or I'm going to go to Thailand, I'm going to go somewhere that's less expensive, and buy a home there. Maybe you can buy a pretty nice home in many parts of Southeast Asia, or in South America for 100 to $250,000, which is super hard to do in the United States, and in some places even cheaper than that. But particularly if you're going to be going outside of the United States, I would strongly encourage to rent for a period of time just to make sure that it's going to be your new home. So that's the easier decision. But what if you're staying? What if your adult children live a couple miles away, your grandkids are there, and you're like, hey, Azul, this is definitely where I want to live. I've owned this home for 10 years, 20 years, whatever the situation is. And then the question is, should you hold on to your house, or should you sell it and invest the proceeds, have that money available to you, and then just rent? And that's where it gets harder. And of course, the rule of thumb, the rule I learned from my parents is, boy, you want to own your own home, and you want to have it paid off before you retire. And you want to own your house in retirement, because then you have a roof over your head. You have that security. And certainly, my parents' advice about paying it off before I retired, paying off my mortgage, I think is good advice. Now, it gets complicated because, in that day and age, people's mortgages were pretty high. And many of us now, we benefited from the low interest rates that the US recently had during the pandemic, and for we had relatively low interest rates for a 10, 15-year period. And now they've jumped back up. So the financial decision, do you pay off a mortgage that might be 2.5 or 3%? And the question is, can you earn more than on the stock market? And having it invested in a diversified, balanced portfolio that's maybe not all stock market, but stock market and bonds. And if you have a 2.5% or a 3% mortgage, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know, but the odds are highly likely that you're going to get more money in an invested account than what you're giving up, than if you were to take that money and pay down the mortgage. So that's the academic answer. But there's more to think about than just the academic answer. It's also, what kind of lifestyle does that give you? If you know you want to stay in the town that you're at, and you don't mind the fact that it it locks you into a location, right? I mean, yes, you could rent it out, but many people don't want to rent out their house. Though again, for a short period of time, that might be an okay thing to do. If you think, hey, I might want to travel. As somebody that does travel, it takes a lot of energy out of you. It is fun. It is rejuvenating. It's exciting. It introduces you to new cultures, but it also can be physically and mentally exhausting. So if you think you want to do that, maybe holding on to your home and renting it out for a year or two while you try that out. Again, try before you buy, just like if you're thinking of moving to a foreign country, before you buy there, you might want to rent. So depending on your situation, but let's go back to, you're going to want to live in the same neighborhood that you've lived in for a decade. Your adult kids, or there's something nearby that you say, you know what, this just puts a skip in my step and I really enjoy being here. Now, one of the things you have to look at is, yes, you have that roof over your head, but what's your situation with homeowners insurance? I lived in the state of Utah for over 20 years. In many places in Utah, it's getting more difficult to get homeowners insurance just because of the increase of wildfires. I lived in a mountain town, so it was harder to get to certain homes. And some of my friends are having a difficult time finding homeowners insurance. So is that your situation? And if you're finding on homeowners insurance, obviously people in Florida, people in California are are facing a bigger hurdle than many other places, just because of the increase of natural disasters that are taking place. But both of those states have limits on how much insurance companies can raise their rates by. And so even if we're not in those areas, we can be impacted because the insurance companies cannot raise the rates as much as they may want in other states. So if you live in a state that doesn't have that cap, what studies have shown is that your rates are likely going to increase at a higher pace as the insurance company tries to figure out how are they going to make this profitable on a nationwide basis. So yes, it's nice to have your home, your, ho- to own your home, to have that, but there are costs associated, both the homeowner's insurance, the property tax. Most of us do not have control over our property tax. California has Prop 13, which limits how much their property tax can go up, but the rest of the nation, we get our one vote and get to vote on that, but we had property tax and then also the cost of maintenance. And as we get older, maintaining the home, maintaining the lawn, that can be difficult. As my father um, got above 75 in age, he passed away when he was 80, but it became harder and harder for my mom and he to take care of the house. And getting people to come and help with that and paying them and getting them to show up on time can also be difficult. So there's a lot of factors that go into this. There is the financial side, and the easiest decision, I think, is if you're staying in the same location and you have a low cost mortgage in place. There's a lot of factors that would say, there's a lot to be said for continuing to own your home and not selling it. But there's also a case to be made for people that are paying the current higher interest rates, for people that are getting older. For instance, my plan, by the time I'm 75 years old, I likely will not own a home just because of what I saw with my father having a more difficult time. When he was, I've lived over 2,000 miles away from my parents for most of my adult life, so I wasn't in a position to be able to go and help out with the lawn, to go and paint when the house needed painting and things like that. So there's a lot of factors outside of the financial aspects of deciding whether you keep your home or you sell your home and put the proceeds in a diversified portfolio and have that increased passive income help with renting a property. If you enjoyed this video, the YouTube algorithm says this is the next video of mine that you should watch. Let me know if the YouTube algorithm is right. And thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.